Hey everybody, it's Brandon and welcome back to Living Life 2.0. It is 4 o'clock Eastern and today is Wednesday. Wednesday? Yeah, June 17th. Oh my gosh, it has been crazy. And I'm really excited to introduce you today to Kristin Andree with the Andree Consulting Group. Andree is based here in Atlanta, so we've actually met in person, which a lot. Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out how many people I've had online in Living Life 2.0 I've actually met in person, but um, she is definitely one that I've met. We had breakfast together, got to know each other, and very impressed with the work that she's been doing. Her heart, her passion, her enthusiasm. And I would like to just let you all know as I'm seeing people getting on board, let us know who you are, that you're watching, where you're from. Even if you're watching this on a replay, let us know. We'd love to keep the community engaged, let everyone know who's here, who's watching, who's learning, and joining us. So let us know. And if you have any questions for Kristin, make sure you pop them in there and I will be able to see them and relay those questions to Kristin. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce Kristin and then we're going to talk about her song or lack of because it's an important part of getting to know her and welcoming her to Living Life 2.0. So, Kristin, after a career changing move as a corporate executive, she turned into an entrepreneur. God bless your soul for doing that and joining the dark side. But Kristin is a performance coach. She's a writer, a speaker, a mom. And what I love about her is she's a tell it like it is business strategist. She is dedicated to helping people grow into the person they are meant to be. She calls it like she sees it. She doesn't tolerate BS and she will help you though turn your goals into reality. So Kristin and her family live here in Atlanta, as I mentioned, and she has three daughters who are Bailey, Mia, and Kennedy. She's the author of two books, one that's been out for quite a while called Don't Make Me Pull This Car Over, which we totally got to talk about that a little bit because the title is just awesome. But her new book's coming out this summer called You're Not For Everyone. Kristin, welcome to Living Life 2.0.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. Well, and I've been excited because not only are you a guest on here now, but you've also been engaging with us and listening to other speakers, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's
So
awesome. It's been great so far. It's a lot of fun.
it's been really fun. And I see my friend Kelly is on there listening from Idaho. Kelly and I went to junior high and high school together, and she's been
Oh,
jumping on.
cool.
Yeah. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for joining us. I hope you get a lot out of it today. So, Kristin, you and I were chatting right before we went live, and we have no song, and I'm going to let you explain why.
All right, so I love the idea of a song because I remember you said, do you not have a song? Is it not your thing? I love music. I'm a huge music fan. I'm a terrible singer, but I will belt it out like nobody's business. But there were so many. That was my challenge. I asked
Sure.
kids. My daughter, my middle said Beyonce because she said "Who Runs the World, Girls." So I was like, okay, I like that one. That's good. But I kept coming back to different things. The one that describes me best is a really obscure Bon Jovi song. I won't say obscure, but if you're not a huge Bon Jovi fan, you're welcome to wherever you are.
Yeah,
The lyrics are phenomenal, but it's not one of the catchy ones that everybody
got
knows. So
it. Got it.
you can
Well,
pretty much play anything by Journey and get there too.
yeah. Okay. Well, that and we maybe next time we'll do that. But and Kim from Southern California as well is on joining us. Hi, Kim. Thanks for joining us. And Kristin, so we went without the song to get to know a little bit about you because there's so many songs and nothing to choose from. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about you and this entrepreneur path that you've gotten yourself on and
Yeah.
your coaching business.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting path, and it was nothing. As much as I talk about designing your life, I think it kind of just evolved. I started my degrees actually in the medical profession. So I have a degree in physical therapy. I did physical therapy and athletic training, and after about a decade, got out of that and went into finance. So spent 20 years in financial services, and the more I got into my career and kind of was climbing the corporate ladder, which I thought was what I wanted, I kept finding that I loved developing people.
Mm-hmm.
So I launched my coaching consulting firm 11 years ago, and been able to do writing and speaking and podcasting, and it's just fun. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I finally found like it's just my thing, because I feel like if you're doing what you're really meant to do, what God put you on this earth to do, it just is fun and you enjoy it. That's kind of how I got to where I am. I just follow the excitement.
That sounds great. And I asked you to come on today to talk about your new book that is You're Not for Everyone. And we titled today being Everyone is not for you, but you can be for everyone. Tell me the premise of the book and why you wrote it.
The premise of it is the more I grow, the older I get, and as I watch my daughters grow, and then also the journey I've seen my clients go on, I feel like so many of us are living for other people, trying to figure out what it is other people want for our lives and what other people think we should do, as opposed to really following our own gifts and strengths. So a lot of it's about the journey, just to be able to do that. But at the same time, realizing that even though you're not for everyone, like everybody's not meant to be in your circle, but you can still be for everyone and be kind and generous and loving to everybody while you're cultivating the life you're really wanting to lead and are meant to lead.
Yeah. Why do you think that we have, and what do you see with your clients and for you, why do we have a hard time balancing those two?
It's for me personally, I was raised in the South. I grew up in Georgia. I was born in Georgia. So I think for us Southern girls from the 70s and 80s, we were just taught that. We were taught not to be too loud, to kind of be quiet, to take a back seat, not to ruffle any feathers. So we grew up, a lot of us, especially women, people pleasing and trying to do so much for others that we lost sight of what was for us, what really we want to do and what our gifts are and how we can share those gifts with the world. So the more we can start to pay attention to that, the easier it is to live life the way you want to.
Yeah. So what is that challenge? And I know you work primarily with women. How do you help them start seeing that even as a challenge? If they were raised, they were taught, or they just started believing, call it a lie, that they were just meant to be people pleasers. How do you get them started on that process of allowing themselves, I think might be the right way to say it, to start going inward to find out what they really want?
Well, there's a couple of steps. The first step is figuring out what is it you're doing that's not authentic to you. So for some people it's people pleasing. For others it's they kind of round out their edges a little bit. Some people just like to stay in that comfort zone. Some people self-sabotage. I see that in business a lot, where they get right up to the level of success and then they kind of sabotage themselves. So first it's figuring out what you're doing that's not allowing you to use your gifts. And then the second thing is I'm a huge proponent of strengths as opposed to weaknesses. I love the Clifton Strengths Finder. I use that a lot with my clients, and I like to figure out what somebody's naturally good at and help cultivate that. So it's a combination of those two things.
Okay. So what does that path look like for somebody that, let me get back actually. Talk to me a bit more about your book, You're Not for Everyone. What are some of the key principles that you want people to take away from that book?
So the first section is really exploring the things we talked about. Is, are you being too much for other people? And when I say that, people kind of look at me like, aren't you supposed to be for other people? And the answer is absolutely yes. But I want to make sure that you're authentic in yourself. And this relates personally and professionally. So on the personal side, it's really exploring, and the book takes them through what is it you're doing that's not you. And then it does that professionally as well. And then the next step is figuring out, how are you being for other people? How are you showing up for your family, for the people most important to you? Because if we're trying to be all things to all people, we can't really go deep with the ones that are really for us, our family, our closest circle, our best clients. So in order to say yes to all the right things, we've got to help them say no to the things that really aren't meant to be there. So the book takes you through all that and then helps you design kind of life the way you want it.
Cool. So what does that design process look like? So if somebody's going to get your book, read your book, what could they get out of it at the end of it?
So my whole goal is to help people design their intentional life, whether I'm working with them personally, they're reading the book or whatever. It's just figuring out, what does your home life look like? What is your family life? What hobbies are you doing? That's a big thing. I feel like a lot of people, when we get into that parenting mode, we kind of forget ourselves, and our hobbies become whatever our kids do. And I had a a coach and a therapist I was working with before that's like, what are your hobbies? And I started naming them. He's like, those are your kids' hobbies that you just kind of show up at. So it's really taking a look at, personally, professionally, relationally, what does life look like? And then putting some really concrete steps in place to be able to build that. Mm-hmm. And then having people in the stands that help hold us accountable to.
Got it. So what are some of the biggest obstacles people face if when they get to that place of going, I want to do this, I want to do this for me?
The biggest obstacle, I think, is fear. I think it's the fear of two things: the fear of failure. So the fear of, what if I let go of this? What if it doesn't work? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is the fear of success. Yeah. It's counterintuitive as that sounds. A lot of people don't move forward because they've got this little thing pulling in and going, oh, what if this really works? I mean, what if I'm gonna, meant to just be this big person or love my life? And there's a little bit of fear in the success sometimes.
Yeah. How do you walk someone through that process of I mean, number one, I think it would be really hard for most people to even get to a place of admitting that they have a fear of success. I mean, it's easy to say I have a fear of failure, right? And that's very acceptable, I think, in our culture to say, oh, I'm just, what if I fail? But right. A fear of success, I mean, I agree with that there's a lot of people that they're scared to start. They're scared what other people are going to say. But the unspoken kind of underneath is that fear of what if this succeeds and can I handle it? How do you go about working? I mean, we said in your bio, you're a no BS. So I'm assuming that I couldn't, BS and pull this over on you if I was working with you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting is the first thing to get, I'm definitely no BS, but that just means I'm going to talk you through it. Because most people have not addressed the fear. You mentioned fear of success. Most people haven't addressed it. And frequently it's just getting them to talk it out. What does this look like? What are you really afraid of? Honestly, with most people that have the fear of success, it's a matter of how am I going to be viewed by other people?
Yeah.
And a lot of times frequently people, when their businesses grow, they outgrow some of their relationships. Yeah. And if we're able to talk through that and really let them think through all the things and figure out, what they find is if the person's truly for them and the right person, you're not going to outgrow that relationship. And if you do, you've got to, once we actually evaluate, is that the right person to have in your life? Whether it's a friend, client, what have you, it helps them kind of move forward a little bit.
Yeah. So how do people come to a point when they realize, and it's even hard to ask this question because you almost feel guilty. It's like, I've been giving too much, right? I've been for other people too much. I need to start taking a look at me. I mean, that's just hard for most people to admit. How do you coach people through that?
It's hard. It is hard for people to admit. And I think women more than men, because that's just kind of how we're wired. We're helpers. We want to be even with men, they want to be the provider. So the first thing we look at is what it's important to understand with this journey of not being for everyone and figuring out your life is there's no right or wrong answer. There's no prescription for how it should look. I think we've been shoulding too much and trying to figure out how things should look. And if we can just take a step back and baby steps, what's one area? So what we walk through in the book is we talk about 10 different areas. I don't need to fix all of them. Let's just take a step. And as you move forward based on how your life circumstances, your schedule, you can't solve it all at once, but the more we can intentionally move forward, we're better for ourselves and we're better for those around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me take a little break and ask anybody else out there that if you have any questions for Kristin, I am monitoring the chat over here, the comments. Love to hear your questions, your comments into what we're talking about. Kristin, you're talking about the first step. What are some of the easier first steps that people can make?
The first, there's a couple. The first one I think is to start to listen to your gut, because every single person, I kind of joke with me, every bonehead decision I've made in my life, I had something personally or professionally, I had something tugging me the other way. And it's just, we knew whether it was a business venture, a relationship, a risk you're taking in your personal life, whatever it is. The first thing I tell people is just listen to your gut. Be really aware of what your intuition is telling you and start to start to honor that in yourself, start to follow that. So that's an easy first step. It doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost you any time. It's just paying attention to kind of where you are. And the second thing is, and this is my rule of thumb with everything. I tell my coaching clients this all the time. If it's not bringing you joy, and if it's not moving you closer to your goals, start saying no. So that's an easy first step people can take no matter what area of their life they're looking at, to figure out is, if it's not bringing me joy, if it's not moving me closer to my goals, I need to evaluate whether I'm spending time or energy on this.
Yeah, I agree with that on the goals. And sometimes I think that one about not giving you joy, it's a hard one because it seems very selfish. If it's like, well, I'm not getting anything out of this, so I'm going to pull myself back. And I don't think that's the intention behind it, but that's the way.
It could be something, it could be for somebody else. Like I get a lot of joy about, I have one of my daughters is in very competitive athletics. That brings me joy to go see that. Absolutely. Right. I'm not getting anything out of it other than that joy.
Yeah. Alejandro just posted on here, follow your heart because it knows the way.
Yes.
Yeah. And you were saying that as the number one. It's like, every decision you've made, especially the bad ones, and I'll agree with this, there was always some sort of a voice or a thought or a gut. And, I run a lot of my decisions, or most of my I run all my big decisions by my wife, and we chat through them. But sometimes there's just that inner voice, that gut, that's something, and sometimes we ignore it. Why do we ignore that voice, that heart?
I feel like from personal experience, I think it's because even though I know it's probably not going to work or it's not really what I should do, there's something about it that you just want. And it's usually that little devil on your shoulder yelling at you, I know you want this. It's because we're craving something, whether it's attention or monetary return or something. But I will say with 100% certainty, my gut's never been wrong. I haven't always listened to it, but it hasn't been wrong.
Yeah.
So my hope is that we can teach more people to just follow that, to honor the kind of internal GPS we've got working.
Yeah. Alejandro followed up on here. He says intuition is very important. We need to pay attention to it. And Alejandro, for you and everyone else, and for Kristin, how do we start hearing that intuition? How do we pay attention to that intuition? How do we know it's a difference between, hey, this is something I listen to, or this is just my own fear talking?
For one of the techniques I've found very helpful, and anybody that knows me personally will understand, I am very, very type A, very active, very busy.
You are not.
I'm crazy, and I'm a go person. So for me, I don't ever stop. The whole thing with the COVID and the quarantine, it's probably the first time in, 20-something years, I kind of slowed down a little bit. But the only way we can understand and recognize the gut is to be still and listen. Yeah. So one of the practices I started is it's just 3 minutes. And I've had several of my clients do this. It was suggested to me to do it. But 3 minutes a day, I just do a brain dump, whatever is in my head. I just write it down. Sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a phrase. But all of those gut things, those immediate things come out typically. And the other thing that comes out is any clutter that's in there. It just kind of gets everything and opens my brain, because then I can really, if you're still, the gut will speak a lot louder if you get all the clutter out of the way.
Yeah, that's really good. I started using an app called Pause, and it has a 1, 3, 5, and 10-minute pause that you can run, and it's it's kind of like music, but then they'll speak into it, and there's times where it's just quiet. But what I like about it is that it gives me that structure, and on days where I feel like I'm just going, and it seems like a lot too, then I'll get the pop-up and it'll say, hey, it's a good time to take a pause. And I'm like, darn right it is, you're right, and turn it on. So
I heard about that app, but I haven't tried it yet. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, there's a few of them out there. I've enjoyed Pause. That's one I've kind of stuck with. But yeah, definitely taking a pause and reflecting. What else? How else do we get comfortable with the fact that we can't be for everyone, or not everyone's going to be for us, but we can be for everyone?
One of the other things I think is we're busy. I think this, again, the slowdown has caused us all to kind of evaluate, because we couldn't get out of the house for a few months. I know in Georgia things are opening up here, but you know, there was so much time where I look back and I'm like, man, I said yes to all these things and I was just going. I had work events and client meetings that were in person and dinners with friends. And a lot of it is evaluating, back to the joy and the goals thing. It's evaluating, what should I be doing? How busy should I be? Because honestly, with all of the executives and the business owners I work with, and I work with a lot of people in finance too, these are all, great, talented, successful, driven people, but they don't slow down. So it's just causing them to look at your calendar and figure out, what do you need to just take off of there? And for me, and for a lot of my clients, a lot of times it's relationships. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying completely cut people out, but we're probably spending time with people that are draining our energy, where maybe instead of a 2-hour dinner, we could do a 5-minute phone call, and it just recaptures some time and some energy for us.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm looking in here, and Alejandro said that you're a very high D on the disc.
I'm a high D, high I on the disc. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
What's funny is actually my I's a little bit higher than my D. I'm definitely, I don't have much S or C at all. But Alejandro, you got it spot on.
Yeah, I'm a high I with a pretty high D as well. And it's all that process of knowing yourself and in order to lead yourself. So I loved hearing you talk about people taking energy from you, that maybe you could take instead of doing a dinner, you could do a 5-minute phone call. That's hard sometimes, right? Because we feel like we're saying no to people. And you mentioned earlier sometimes your success, you outgrow people, but if they're really for you, you'll never really outgrow them. Can you kind of speak through that? I mean, I think that's so important. It is so true, by the way, but it's really hard to get your head around, I think, until you experience it.
It is, and I had never thought about that. When I started my career in finance, my managing partner, I started building a practice pretty quick. I had some success early on, which was awesome. And I remember my managing partner, probably my first or second year in the business, saying, you're going to outgrow some of your relationships. And I'm like, what? You're crazy. These are my people. I'm not going to outgrow them. And he was right. And I would have bet money he was going to be wrong, but he was right. But I think what people think when they think of outgrowing the relationship is you cut this person off and you never talk to them again. And that's not the thing at all. That's the scary part of it. When you can understand that outgrowing relationship has to do more with your day-to-day and your experience with that person. Maybe that person, instead of being somebody you're around all the time, is somebody you see in a group setting and you're still friendly, but you might have moved on and have new relationships. So it's just a balance. You want to make sure that you're always being kind to everybody, but I mean, none of us are, I won't say none, most of us aren't hanging out with our friends from high school or even college. I'm still friendly with a lot of them, but the dynamic of the relationship changes.
Well, and I think that, there's the growth mindset is, what's the right word I'm thinking for? It can be, how do I say, let me just explain it. When you have a growth mindset, and you're focused on growing in all areas of your life, as we talk about in Living Life 2.0. And when I was so focused on Brandon 2.0, there were people around me that didn't get it. There's people around me that thought I was wasting my time or it wasn't necessary. And even people that go, oh yeah, that's good for you. But when I talk about things I was learning or how it was valuable, it just wasn't of interest to them. And for me, I don't like to just sit around and talk about sports or talk about other things. And I think for me, that was how I started to outgrow some relationships. And they were still fine, good people. It's always hard to be like, oh, I didn't, I'm not saying I'm better than them. I just wanted different things. I wanted different things that were challenging me more. And they weren't there. And so it was easier just to kind of move into circles where people were challenging me more in the areas that I wanted to be challenged and grow in.
And you're exactly right, because that's really what I mean when I say outgrow relationships. It just means the dynamic of it has changed. They're not bad people. There was no massive blowout. It's just as we grow, we evolve, and our relationships need to evolve with that, or we get stuck. I'm a big personal growth person too, so most of my closest relationships are very similar in that regard. I can't talk about the weather or sports either.
Yeah, I can a little bit, and then I'm bored. Let's get deep.
I
Let's
don't
get
have
to
a
the
lot of sports
heart.
to talk about right now. So.
That's right. Well, you know what? I must say today the English Premier League started playing again. No fans in the stands, but my alerts were going off that games were being played, so I was kind of happy. Tired of watching, well, not watched reruns because I can't stand it, but Alejandro popped in again on here, and great stuff, Alejandro. Thank you. I need to have him come on at some point. But he's talking about addressing the topic of removing toxic and negative people, energy drainers, as I call them. He calls them energy vampires. I love that.
I call them
term.
energy zappers. So
Energy
we all have our
zappers.
term.
There you go. What are some ways that you have found or coached your clients in being able to remove them? And I don't want to say move on gently, because I think people that are energy drainers like that, we can still be kind and loving. But if we want to get where we want to be in life, there are definitely things that we need to cut out, or at least keep some really strong boundaries with.
Right. There's a couple things. I mean, if there are going to be energy vampires or zappers that you just can't get rid of for one reason or another. I mean, I think you've got to be kind to everybody. So if you find that your energy is draining, and the rule of thumb I use with clients is look at your calendar during the week. You're going to have some people that you're like, yes, I can't wait to see this person. Those are your people. We need more of those. But there are going to be some that you're like, oh, if it's a client, professionally, you've got to look at who you might outsource that client or prospect to, just to free up the energy for you. If it's personal, which is more the case, you've got to figure out how you can lessen your face-to-face time. So again, you know what, I can't make a dinner meeting, but why don't we do a phone call? Groups help as well. So if it's somebody that you really don't want to cut out of your life completely, maybe it's, my guess is if they're draining your energy, they're probably draining other people's too.
Yeah.
So sometimes that might be a person you want to be around in a group environment. I've got some friends that, not necessarily energy drainers, but I just do better in groups with them, because then you've got people to kind of spread it out a little.
Yeah, you're being a little bit nicer than I would be, I think.
Oh, now if they're toxic, there's a difference between energy drainers and toxic.
Very true.
If there's somebody you're like, oh, for whatever reason, they repeat stories, they like me, they're too loud, whatever it is, those are the ones you kind of lessen the time with. If they're toxic, I wholeheartedly think they need to go.
Well, and I think that, I mean, I'm very protective of my time. I have my wife, we have 5 kids, I have my businesses, I have my close friends, and I'm very protective of my time, because time is the one resource that we can't replace. And so I am very protective of it, and where I want to go, I'm very focused on doing it. And I don't mean to be rude, but I've gotten better and better as I've gotten older with just saying no, and not feeling like I have to explain it or make an excuse. It's just not on my radar right now. I've got other things that I want to get done, and that's not something on my radar at the moment. It's hard, and some people don't like that answer and they get upset, but I can't always accommodate everything, because it's not in my goals. It's going to distract me.
Right. But that's part of the finding the people that are for you. If you say no to somebody because either you need the energy, you need the time, you need to recapture, time with your spouse, whatever it is, if they don't get that, they're not your people.
Right.
I've never had any of my close circle where if they say, hey, let's grab dinner, I go, oh, you know what? I'm not feeling it. I mean, if they're really for you, you can say whatever you want. I mean, sometimes people invite me out and I'm like, I'm zonked.
Yeah.
I just need a night to do nothing.
Yeah.
Or I'd rather spend time with my girls, and people get that if they're the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love being at home, and I actually need to push myself a lot of times to be out networking more, in front of people more, because I love to work, and I love to do my desk work, and I love being at home. So I got to get better at that. But Kim Shelton on here said, this is really interesting. I find people think they are good where they are and don't need to grow. We need to never stop growing, but that's where she finds that she outgrows certain people. I think that is a really good barometer of being able to know if this is a relationship that it's time to kind of outgrow and move on. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, huge barometer, because I post a lot. I'm really active on social media, and I'll post a lot of growth oriented things and inspirational things. And one of my good friends from high school is like, you know what? I'm totally fine with my 9 to 5 just being mediocre. And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. If that's what's for you, that's awesome. So part of it is the first step is realizing not everybody is of a growth mindset, and that's okay. I mean, it really is. And I will love those people and be kind to those people. And if and when they ever want to grow, I'm there. But for my closest relationships, and I think if you are of a growth mindset, you have to surround yourself with similar people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Alejandro posted on here and reminded us that Jim Rohn said, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Oh gosh, don't you love that?
And absolutely, and that is such a great thing.
You just might be your kids. I was thinking, I read that quote one time. It had popped up on my feed, and it was a week I was home with all the girls, and I'm like, well, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but it the kids are interesting influences on us at most ages.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, the people we spend time with, we're hearing them, and we could be trying to move our conversation in the direction that we want, but if they're not moving in that direction as well, then it's just more energy drained about being sucked into conversations we don't want to be around. And I think
that was the premise of the not for everyone is you don't that's okay. There's nothing wrong with them not being your person. I mean, my clients laugh at me with prospecting, and they're trying to work in different target markets, and they'll have difficulty with a client or a prospect, and I'm like, I just say, they're not my person. And I had a client a few weeks ago said, I can hear you and your little Southern accent in my head going, not your person, but true. Like, we don't need to force it. If it's not to be kind and be loving, but we don't have to force it.
Yeah, absolutely. And be okay with the word no. No, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got Kim saying kindness is a must. She agrees with you on that. Kelly said birds of a feather flock together, right? So true. And I think the encouragement I would have for everybody today, and I'm going to give you the last word here, but the encouragement I would give for everybody today is, and when we know ourselves, when we know what we want, and we start going after it. The other thing, there's the African proverb is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I think it's also when we're ready and start moving, and it's like our eyes start seeing, our ears start hearing, and we find new people, and our people become different, and we gravitate to them because they challenge us, they push us, they motivate us, they encourage us. And so that's my 2 cents on this. But as we wrap this up, let me hold on one second. Alejandro says one more thing to keep in mind is that not everyone is at the same level of awareness. You want to address that?
Well, that's kind of what I was saying, is some people just want to be just coasting along, and that's okay. You've got to meet people where they are. And that's one of the biggest things with coaching. I'm not trying to cookie cutter anybody. I need to figure out where you are and where you want to go. And then we help connect the dots. But not everyone, no two people at all are at the same level.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kristin, this has been an awesome conversation, and I'm sure we could keep going. We'd be here for 2 hours and everybody would be bored with us, but you and I well, probably not. They've been really engaging today, which is fantastic. But your new book is called You're Not For Everyone. It's coming out this summer. Do you have a cover for it yet that you can show us, or no?
No. But we posted some cover designs on my Facebook. So I'm on Facebook at Andree Group, and there's a book page, You're Not For Everyone, on Facebook, and we posted the top 5. So it's been interesting. I want to see what everybody thought. I'm not revealing my favorite yet, though, but we put some cover designs out there. One of the 5 was designed by one of my daughters, because she asked if she could try one, but I won't.
Very cool. Well, if the community chooses one that's not your favorite, are you gonna be okay going with it, or are you gonna say no? It's my book.
I don't know. You know what's funny? It's overwhelmingly going with the one that I like.
Well, there you go.
I'll say overwhelmingly. There's 2 that I really like, and those are the 2 that seem to be polling the best. So I was like, okay, I feel pretty good about this.
So see, your people know
I
you,
know my audience.
Right? Your people know you, and you know your people. Then.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's been a lot of fun, though.
Excellent. Well, 2 things for me before we leave. How do people connect with you if they want to? And then the last thing is, what do you want to leave everybody with today as we head out?
Connect with me is easy. I'm on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that at Andree Group. Andree has 2 E's. So at Andree Group. And then the book, if you want to follow along with that, we'll be posting some snippets and clips. It's You're Not For Everyone on Facebook is the page for the book.
Excellent. And
yeah, I love engaging. So yeah, comment, say hello. I like talking to people.
And I've been tagging you on here, so anybody that is watching the video, they can see in the comments that you're tagged there in your personal Facebook. And I'll come back afterwards and add the Andree Group as well in here in your book.
Yeah,
so
personal Facebook's fine too, but yeah. And
excellent.
I'd say to leave everybody, just, the You're Not For Everyone is just because I want people to understand that we're all put here with different unique gifts. And if we can just use our gifts that God gave us and show up authentically as ourself and be ourself all the time, not only are we going to love life, but the right people are going to find you both personally and professionally, and they're going to stay. And it just makes things a lot more fun. So that's really what I'm hoping people get out of the book and out of the work we do.
Yeah, that was a great way of summarizing our conversations today. Thank you so much, Kristin. Everybody, Kristin Andree with the Andree Group, a consulting group. All her tags and everything will be in the comments if you want to connect with her. And everybody, thank you again so much for being a member of Living Life 2.0. We are quickly approaching 400 members, which I think is just, it's humbling. It's awesome. I'm very grateful. We are on, I think, what are we at now? Day 21 of this 24-day going live every single day, and nearly 400 members. So everyone out there, you want to invite your friends, we'd love to have them. After today's conversation, there's some friends you may not want to invite. They're just not your people, but love to have more in here. And tomorrow I get to talk with Dr. Carl Benzio, who is the medical director at Honey Lake Clinic. And we're going to talk a bit about mental illness. We're going to talk about how it affects people, especially in high energy, high stress lives. And we're going to get into the medical side. We're going to get into the mental side as well. And I'm really excited to have it, especially with my background of dealing with, brain chemical issues and all the effects it's had on my life throughout the years. So we'll see everybody tomorrow. Once again, Kristin Andree was my guest today. She was awesome. Find her in the comments, connect with her. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Be blessed.
Thank you.